Story 1.
The first time my reflection moved on its own, I thought I blinked. The second time, I knew I hadn't. It started small, so small that I convinced myself it wasn't real. A delay. A fraction of a second. The kind of thing you notice only when you're already tired. I first noticed it late one night while brushing my teeth. The bathroom light hummed softly above me. Everything was normal, familiar. My reflection stared back the way it always had, same tired eyes, same slouch in my shoulders. I lifted my toothbrush. My reflection followed. Almost. There was a pause, barely noticeable, but it was there. I lowered the brush and leaned closer to the mirror. My reflection leaned too, again, just slightly late. I told myself mirrors don't work instantly. That light has travel time. That fatigue messes with perception. All the reasonable explanations came easily. Over the next few days, I started testing it. Not intentionally at first, just little things, tilting my head, raising an eyebrow, blinking deliberately, every time my reflection followed, but never exactly when it should. The delay was tiny. Less than a second, but once you notice something like that, you can't stop seeing it. One evening, I stood perfectly still in front of the mirror, didn't move. Didn't blink, just watched. My reflection stared back, then its eyes shifted slightly. I felt my chest tighten. I hadn't moved. I raised my hand slowly. My reflection hesitated, then raised its hand too. That was the moment denial stopped working. I laughed nervously and stepped back. The reflection stepped back too, but again, just a beat late. That night I dreamed I was standing in front of the mirror while someone stood behind it, watching, learning. The next morning I tried to avoid looking at myself. I shaved without facing the mirror. Washed my hands while staring at the sink. Used my phone camera instead of reflections when I could. But reflections are everywhere. Windows, screens, dark surfaces. I caught it again in my laptop screen at work. I smiled at a joke someone told. The reflection smiled too, but the smile lingered. A little longer than mine. I stopped smiling. The reflection didn't. It faded only after a second, like it was correcting itself. That night, standing in the bathroom again, I whispered, "Stop." My reflection's lips moved, but no sound came out. Then slowly it closed its mouth. At that point, I knew the truth. Whatever I was seeing wasn't delayed because it was slow. It was delayed because it was deciding. And it was learning how to time itself. I stopped testing the mirror after that, not because I believed it would stop, but because I was afraid of what I might teach it next. For a few days, everything seemed normal again. The delays shrank. The timing improved. If someone had watched me casually, they wouldn't have noticed anything wrong, but I did. The reflection was no longer late. It was careful. I noticed it one morning while tying my shoes in the hallway mirror. I bent down. The reflection bent too, perfectly, too perfectly. I stood up quickly. The reflection stood with me. No delay, no hesitation. For the first time since this began, the mirror felt smooth again. Predictable. That's when the real fear started. That evening, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and smiled. A quick, reflexive smile. The reflection smiled first, just a fraction of a second before I felt it on my own face. I froze. The reflection didn't. It kept smiling, watching me, waiting. I tried to move my arm. My reflection moved at the same time, or maybe no, it moved just before me. The sensation was subtle but unmistakable, like following instructions instead of giving them. I stepped back. The reflection stepped back too, but this time I felt like I was copying it. That night I dreamed I was standing in front of the mirror again, but this time the glass was gone, just empty space between us. When I woke up, I didn't look at myself right away. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to my own breathing. I rolled onto my side. The wardrobe mirror caught the movement. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. My reflection was already turned toward me. I hadn't moved enough yet. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I sat up slowly. The reflection was already sitting, waiting. That was when it looked away. Not at me, not past me, but to the side. As if someone else had entered the room, I whispered, "Who are you looking at?" The reflection didn't answer. It didn't look back. The next day, mirrors stopped behaving like reflections. They behaved like windows. Sometimes my reflection blinked when I hadn't. Sometimes it breathed differently, shallower, measured, practiced. I realized then that the delays had never been flaws. They were rehearsals. It wasn't trying to copy me. It was trying to replace the timing. One night I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and closed my eyes, just for a second. When I opened them, my reflection wasn't doing what I was doing. It was standing differently, straighter, calmer, more confident. I raised my hand. My reflection didn't. Instead, it tilted its head, studied me. That's when I understood the final truth. Reflections don't need to match you perfectly. They just need to match you better than you match yourself. I turned away from the mirror and walked out of the bathroom. I felt the movement behind me, not in the glass, in the room. Now when I catch glimpses of myself in dark windows or phone screens, I don't test it anymore. I don't smile. I don't wave. Because sometimes my reflection is already doing those things. And I'm the one trying to keep up.
Story 2.
I noticed it while brushing my teeth. Not right away. Only after I finished rinsing and looked up. My reflection wasn't looking at me anymore. At first I thought I'd shifted without realizing it. A slight turn of my head, a bad angle. Bathroom mirrors are unforgiving that way. I adjusted my stance, centered myself, looked straight ahead. My reflection didn't. Its eyes were angled slightly to the left, not dramatically, just enough to be wrong. I waited. The reflection's gaze stayed fixed somewhere over my shoulder. As if something else had entered the room, I raised my hand slowly. My reflection followed the motion, but its eyes never returned to mine. "Hey," I said out loud. My lips moved in the mirror. The eyes didn't flicker. That was the first time I felt embarrassed by my own reflection, like I was interrupting it. I leaned closer to the glass, close enough to see pores, fine lines, tiny imperfections I'd never paid attention to before. The reflection leaned in too, but its eyes tracked past me. I turned around quickly. The bathroom was empty, door closed, light humming. Nothing behind me. When I turned back, the reflection finally met my gaze, instantly, perfectly, as if it had never looked away at all. I told myself it was fatigue. I strain, stress. Anything that didn't involve questioning my own face. But once you see something like that, your brain doesn't let it go. Over the next few days, I caught it happening again. In the elevator mirror at work, in a dark window on the train, in my phone screen when it went black between notifications. Always the same thing, the reflection doing everything right. Except watching me. Sometimes it looked just past my ear, sometimes over my shoulder. Once it looked down. I started testing it, subtle tests, things no one else would notice. I shifted my weight suddenly. The reflection followed, eyes still elsewhere. I smiled. The reflection smiled back, but its eyes didn't soften, didn't crinkle, didn't engage. One night standing in the bathroom again, I whispered, "What are you looking at?" The reflection's mouth moved, silent, shaping words I couldn't hear. Its eyes flicked briefly toward mine, then away again. That was worse than if it had ignored me completely. I covered the mirror with a towel that night, but reflections don't need mirrors. I saw it later in the microwave door. Same thing, perfect imitation, wrong focus. It was like standing next to someone who kept glancing over your shoulder during a conversation. Like you weren't the most important thing in the room anymore. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling, afraid to look toward the wardrobe mirror. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement. My reflection, faint in the dark glass, was already awake, already watching, just not watching me. I tried to ignore it. That was my first mistake. For a few days, I avoided mirrors entirely, brushed my teeth with my head down, covered reflective surfaces with towels, turned my phone face down when the screen went dark. It helped, for a while. But reflections don't disappear when you stop looking at them. They just get more patient. I noticed the change one evening while washing my hands in the kitchen sink. The faucet handle was chrome, slightly curved. I caught my reflection in it. It was distorted, stretched, but clear enough to see the eyes. They were looking directly at me. I froze. Slowly lifted my head. The reflection in the faucet looked away again. That was when I understood it could look at me. It was choosing not to. That night I stood in front of the bathroom mirror again. No towel, no avoidance. I wanted answers. "What are you watching?" I asked softly. My reflection didn't respond, didn't blink, didn't shift. Just stared past me. I took a step to the side. The reflection followed my movement perfectly. Its gaze stayed fixed. I turned my head. The reflection's head turned. Its eyes didn't. It was tracking something else, something that wasn't moving the way I was. I whispered, "Is it behind me?" The reflection's lips pressed together. A warning. My heart hammered. Every instinct told me not to turn around, so I didn't. Instead, I watched the mirror, watched my reflection's pupils widen slightly, watched its jaw tense. Fear, not mine, reflected fear. The lights flickered, just once. The reflection leaned forward, not closer to me, closer to whatever it was watching. I felt the air behind me change. Pressure, presence. The reflection looked back at me then. For the first time in days. Eyes wide, urgent, and it shook its head. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. The reflection mouthed something slowly. "Carefully, don't turn around." The mirror fogged suddenly, from the inside. When it cleared, my reflection was calm again. Neutral, watching past me once more. I stepped backward. The reflection did too, still not looking at me. I left the bathroom, slept with the lights on, didn't dream. The next morning, everything looked normal, too normal. My reflection watched me again. Smiled when I smiled. Met my eyes, perfect synchronization. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I realized something. I could feel something behind me, not as a presence, as a certainty. And my reflection wasn't ignoring me anymore. It was making sure I didn't look away. Now, whenever I catch my reflection staring past me, I don't ask questions. I don't test it. I don't wave, I stay still. I keep eye contact, because I've learned the rule. When your reflection looks away first, it's because something else has entered the room. And it doesn't want you to see it.
Story 3.
I wasn't smiling. That was the part I was sure about. I was standing in the elevator at work, half asleep, staring at my reflection in the dull metal wall as the doors closed. Another long day ahead. Another morning where my face hadn't caught up with my body yet. I looked tired, flat, empty. And then my reflection smiled. Not a big smile, not exaggerated, just a small, polite curve of the mouth. The kind you give someone when you don't want to talk, but I hadn't smiled. I felt it immediately, an instinctive wrongness. The way you know when someone says your name but no one is there. I frowned. The reflection frowned too, perfectly. The elevator dinged and the doors opened. I stepped out quickly, heart beating faster than it should have. I told myself it was a trick of the lighting. Metal reflections distort faces. Everyone knows that, except it kept happening. Later that afternoon, I caught it again in the office bathroom. I was washing my hands, staring blankly at the sink, thinking about nothing in particular. I glanced up. My reflection was smiling again. This time, it held the expression longer. Like it was waiting to see if I'd notice. I stopped washing my hands. The smile faded. A moment too late, I leaned closer to the mirror. "Why are you doing that?" I whispered, feeling ridiculous the moment the words left my mouth. My reflection's lips moved, but it didn't smile, it didn't speak. That night at home, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror for a long time, studied my face, practiced expressions. Neutral, sad, annoyed, everything matched perfectly until I laughed. Just a short breath of a laugh at how stupid I felt. The reflection laughed too, a fraction of a second before I did. The sound came from my throat after I saw it on my face. I stopped laughing. The reflection didn't, its smile widened, eyes crinkling in a way mine weren't. Real joy, not mine. That's when I felt it, not fear, violation. The reflection wasn't copying my emotions. It was reacting to something else. Over the next few days, it got worse. I'd feel anxious, my reflection stayed calm. I'd feel calm, my reflection smiled nervously. I'd feel nothing, and my reflection looked amused, like it was responding to a different version of events, a version ahead of mine. One night, exhausted, I stood in front of the mirror and forced myself to smile. Wide, exaggerated. The reflection smiled too, but this time it looked disappointed. Its smile faded before mine did. That was the moment I understood something was wrong. The reflection wasn't lagging. It wasn't malfunctioning. It was reacting to information I didn't have yet. And whatever it was responding to was getting closer. After that night, I stopped trusting how I felt, not my thoughts, my reactions. I'd feel a spike of anxiety for no reason. Then a second later, something would happen to justify it. A phone call, an email, a sudden noise behind me. It was like my emotions were arriving late. I noticed it first with laughter. Someone told a joke at work. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But I'd already seen the smile on my reflection in the glass wall beside me, waiting. The mirror wasn't reacting to my emotions anymore. It was anticipating them. One night I tested it. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror completely still, face blank, mind empty. I waited. My reflection smiled, slowly, gently. I felt nothing. No urge, no humor, no warmth. Then, seconds later, a memory surfaced, something embarrassing from years ago. My chest tightened. A laugh escaped my throat. The reflection's smile faded, satisfied. I staggered back. "What are you smiling at?" I whispered. My reflection tilted its head, not mirroring, evaluating. I tried to think of something sad, something painful. Before the thought fully formed, the reflection's eyes softened. Its smile disappeared, mouth trembling. Then the sadness hit me, heavy, sudden. I understood then. The reflection wasn't copying emotions. It was previewing them. It knew what I was about to feel before I did. And worse, it was choosing when I felt them. Over the next few days, I lost control of my reactions completely. I'd feel calm in moments that should have terrified me, panicked during quiet conversations, detached during arguments. But my reflection, always correct, always prepared, it reacted the way I should have, the way a normal person would. I caught myself watching it more than the world around me, checking its face before responding to anything, using it as a guide. One night, exhausted and scared, I stood in front of the mirror and begged, "Please stop." My reflection frowned, concerned, sympathetic. The emotion hit me seconds later. Fear, guilt, shame. I realized then the final truth. My reflection wasn't malfunctioning, it was regulating. I wasn't losing control. I was being corrected. The last time I saw my reflection smile without me was yesterday, standing in an elevator. Metal walls, dim light. I looked exhausted, numb. The reflection smiled, warm, confident, ready. I felt the emotion come late, again. Now when something happens, I wait. I don't react right away. I check reflective surfaces first. Windows, screens, glass. Because if my reflection smiles, I know I'm about to feel something. And if it ever stops smiling altogether, I'm afraid that means it doesn't need me anymore.
Story 4.
The first time it didn't copy me, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because my brain needed something familiar to do. I was washing my hands in the bathroom when it happened. Nothing dramatic. No flicker, no distortion, just a small, unmistakable wrongness. I lifted my right hand to shut off the tap. The reflection lifted its hand too, but not the same one. I froze, slowly lowered my hand. The reflection did the same. Wrong side again. I told myself I'd mixed it up. Left and right are easy to confuse in mirrors. Everyone knows that, so I tested it, carefully, deliberately. I raised my left hand. The reflection raised its left hand too, not the mirrored opposite. The same. My stomach dropped. That wasn't reflection anymore. That was imitation. I stepped back from the sink. The reflection stepped back as well, but it didn't stop when I did. It took one more step, then waited. "Okay," I whispered, voice shaky. "That's enough." The reflection tilted its head, curious. Not confused, I raised both hands. The reflection hesitated, then raised only one. That was the moment denial broke. Reflections don't choose. They don't improvise. They don't pause to decide. I slammed my palms onto the sink. The reflection placed its hands gently on the porcelain, slower, calmer, like it was trying not to alarm me. I felt something colder than fear creep into my chest. "You're supposed to do what I do," I said aloud. The reflection smiled, not wide, not cruel, just understanding. I backed toward the door. The reflection didn't follow. It stayed by the sink, watching me. That night I covered every mirror in the apartment. Bathroom, bedroom, hallway, but glass is everywhere. I caught it in the darkened TV screen while it was off, standing where I hadn't been, leaning slightly to one side. I unplugged it. The screen went black. The reflection stayed. Later in bed, I reached for my phone. The black screen reflected my face faintly. I didn't move. Neither did it. We stayed like that for a long time, two figures waiting. At some point, my arm twitched involuntarily, just a muscle reflex. The reflection didn't twitch. It smiled. And that's when I realized something terrifying. It wasn't failing to copy me. It was waiting for permission to stop. After that night, the mirror stopped pretending. It didn't try to match me anymore. Not closely. Not at all. The next morning, I uncovered the bathroom mirror slowly, like I was approaching an animal that might bite. I stood still. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe any deeper than I had to. My reflection was already standing there, arms crossed. Weight shifted onto one leg. I wasn't standing like that. I raised my hand cautiously. The reflection watched, did nothing. "Copy me," I said. My voice sounded small in the tiled room. The reflection uncrossed its arms, not to imitate, to gesture. It raised one finger. As if making a point, I stepped back. The reflection didn't. Instead, it took a step forward, not toward the glass, toward me. The mirror didn't ripple, didn't distort. The distance between us simply shortened. I felt my heart pounding in my ears. "You can't do that," I whispered. The reflection tilted its head again, that same evaluating look. Then it did something I hadn't seen before. It reached up and touched its own face. Reflections never do that. They don't self-reference. They don't explore. It traced the line of its jaw slowly, smiled, adjusted its posture, practicing. I felt a strange sensation then. Like my body was lagging behind itself. Like my movements were suggestions instead of commands. I tried to turn away. My reflection turned first. I tried to step back. My legs hesitated. Just a fraction. The reflection stepped confidently. I slammed my hand against the mirror. The reflection didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't mirror the panic. It leaned closer. Its face inches from the glass, eyes searching mine. "You're supposed to follow," I whispered desperately. The reflection shook its head, slow, deliberate. It mouthed something, no sound. But I understood it anyway. I did. That's when I realized the final, unbearable truth. Mirrors don't exist to copy forever. They exist to learn alignment. Once the alignment is perfect, imitation becomes unnecessary. That night I avoided reflective surfaces completely, kept the lights off, moved slowly, carefully. But in the dark, reflections don't disappear. They just detach. As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I felt a shift, a subtle pressure, like something standing up. I didn't turn my head. In the black glass of the wardrobe door, I saw it, not copying me, not delayed, standing, waiting, breathing differently than I was. I understood then why reflections start by copying, why they lag, why they hesitate. They're learning how to move without causing alarm. And once they no longer need the mirror, they don't need you to move first anymore. Now when I feel my body hesitate, when a movement doesn't feel entirely mine, I don't look for mirrors, because I know, if I see my reflection again, it won't be behind glass. It'll be deciding where to go next.
Story 5.
I woke up because something in the room felt organized, not loud, not wrong, just deliberate. The digital clock on my nightstand read 3:11 a.m. The room was dark, but not completely. Streetlight filtered in through the blinds, painting thin silver lines across the wall and the wardrobe mirror opposite my bed. I lay still, listening. No footsteps, no breathing besides my own, yet the air felt occupied. I turned my head slowly. The mirror reflected my bed, my body, my face, and something else. My reflection was sitting up. For a moment, my mind refused to process it. That familiar numbness crept in, the one you feel right before panic, when your brain is still deciding whether reality is safe enough to acknowledge. I was lying flat, hands under the blanket, heart racing. My reflection sat upright at the edge of the bed, posture straight, head tilted slightly like it was studying its own balance. I didn't move, neither did it. Then the reflection raised its hands. Slowly, carefully, I watched as it flexed its fingers, one by one, testing the joints, rolling its wrists as if warming up. I felt my stomach twist. The reflection stood, not suddenly, not aggressively. It stood the way someone does when they don't want to make noise. I was still lying down. The reflection took a step forward, stopped, adjusted its stance. Then it smiled, not at me, at itself. I wanted to scream. I wanted to close my eyes, but some instinct older than fear kept them open. The reflection leaned closer to the mirror. Practice smiling again. Wider this time, too wide. Then it shook its head, adjusted, tried again. That's when I understood. It wasn't reacting, it wasn't copying, it was rehearsing. I squeezed my eyes shut, counted my breaths. When I opened them again, the reflection was back in bed, lying flat, perfectly still, matching me. The room felt normal again, too normal. I didn't sleep after that. I waited for morning with the lights on. The next day, everything seemed fine. My reflection behaved, matched me, lagged when it should, smiled only when I did. But I noticed small things, details I hadn't paid attention to before. My reflection blinked more deliberately, moved its shoulders slightly differently, corrected posture before I did. That night I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and watched it closely. I brushed my teeth. The reflection brushed too, perfect synchronization. Then I stopped. The reflection didn't. It finished the brushing motion, spit, rinsed, set the toothbrush down. I stood frozen, hands gripping the sink. "Why are you doing that?" I whispered. The reflection wiped its mouth, smiled politely, and waited. The next few nights were worse. Every time I woke up between 3 and 4 a.m., I saw movement in reflective surfaces, not always the mirror, sometimes the TV screen, sometimes the window. Always practicing, walking, turning, smiling, breathing, not copying me, not yet practicing being me. I started sleeping with my back to mirrors, covering screens, avoiding reflections. But you can't stop knowing something once you know it. The reflection wasn't trying to escape. It wasn't trying to scare me. It was preparing for timing. And the worst part, every night it got better. The reflection didn't stop practicing. It refined. I noticed it first in the smallest ways. My posture changed without conscious effort. My smile felt rehearsed. My expressions arrived smoother than they used to, like muscle memory that didn't belong to me. When I laughed, it felt pre-approved. At work, coworkers commented on it. "You seem different," one said. "More confident," another added. I nodded and smiled. The smile felt correct. That night I stood in front of the mirror and stared back. "Are you done yet?" I asked quietly. My reflection didn't answer. It tilted its head exactly the way I used to when thinking. I raised my hand. The reflection didn't move. Instead, it took a breath. My breath, before I did. The sensation was subtle but unmistakable, like my lungs were following instructions instead of initiating them. I stepped backward. The reflection stayed. It didn't need to mirror anymore. "You're supposed to copy me," I whispered. The reflection smiled gently, almost apologetically. That night I woke at 3:11 a.m. again. Same time, same silence. This time I didn't look at the mirror. I felt it, a delay in my movements, a hesitation before turning my head, a moment where my body waited then obeyed. I sat up. My reflection was already standing. I stood. The reflection didn't move. It watched. Evaluating, I tried to raise my arm. It lifted first. My arm followed. That was the moment I understood. The reflection wasn't practicing to replace me. It was practicing to lead. Over the next few days, I lost seconds, moments where my body moved without my decision, moments where my voice spoke before I chose the words. I'd catch myself mid-gesture, unsure who initiated it, me or it. I avoided mirrors completely, covered them, removed them. Shattered one in the bathroom. It didn't help. I saw it in glass doors, in phone screens, in darkened monitors, always moving just ahead of me, always correct, always calm. One night, exhausted, terrified, I stood in the bathroom with the lights off, only the mirror visible, only the reflection illuminated by streetlight. "I won't let you," I said. The reflection stepped forward, not toward the glass, toward my side. It placed its hand against the mirror, flat, steady. Then it pressed. The glass didn't break, didn't ripple, it simply accepted. I felt a shift, a sliding sensation behind my eyes, a warmth leaving my chest. Suddenly, I was the one behind glass, watching. The reflection smiled, perfectly, naturally. And I realized something terrifying. It had practiced empathy, practiced hesitation, practiced fear, so I wouldn't resist. Now when I see my face in mirrors, it feels right, comfortable, familiar. The person staring back moves smoothly, confidently, and sometimes, when I try to move first, I feel a resistance, like I'm the one practicing now, trying to remember how it felt to be in control.
Story 6.
The night my reflection didn't match me at all, I didn't notice right away. That's the part that still scares me the most. I'd trained myself not to look. That was survival. Mirrors were covered, screens face down, windows avoided after dark. I learned to move through my apartment by memory, by touch, by shadow. Reflections were no longer tools, they were checkpoints. That night felt ordinary, too ordinary. I cooked dinner, ate standing at the counter, listened to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic outside. Nothing felt wrong. Which meant everything was. I noticed the first discrepancy in my phone. The screen went dark after I locked it. A faint reflection appeared. It wasn't mine. The face was close enough to fool me at first glance. Same bone structure, same eyes, same scars, but the expression was different, calmer, focused, like someone waiting their turn. I tilted the phone. The reflection didn't change, didn't warp, didn't shift perspective. It wasn't following the glass. It was holding position. My chest tightened. I slowly turned the phone back on. The reflection vanished. I told myself it was exhaustion, that my brain had learned fear too well, that it was filling in gaps. Then I passed the hallway mirror, the one I'd forgotten to cover. I stopped. The person in the mirror was standing differently, weight balanced evenly, arms relaxed, posture corrected. I wasn't standing like that. I adjusted my stance, slouched, shifted my weight. The reflection didn't change. We were no longer desynchronized. We were independent. "Okay," I whispered, voice shaking. "This is new." The reflection didn't respond, didn't smile, didn't rehearse. It just watched. I raised my hand. The reflection raised the same hand, but not in response, in parallel. The movements overlapped without causation. Like two people making the same choice for different reasons. I stepped to the side. The reflection stepped too, same direction, same speed. We were no longer copying, we were matching. I felt something shift inside me then, a subtle delay in intention, like my thoughts were checking something before becoming action. I turned away from the mirror, walked into the living room. I felt movement behind me, not footsteps, alignment. The TV screen reflected the room faintly. The reflection was there too, closer now, standing where I hadn't been. I spun around. The hallway mirror was empty. The reflection wasn't bound to glass anymore. It was bound to me. I tried to speak. My mouth moved. A second later, sound came out. I tried again. The delay increased. Words were becoming confirmations instead of decisions. I realized then what had been happening all along. The reflection didn't need mirrors to exist. Mirrors were just training grounds. Safe places to learn timing, emotion, posture, behavior, the practicing, the hesitation, the smiling early, all of it was preparation. That night I stood in the center of my living room. No mirrors. No glass, no reflections, and still I felt watched, not from outside, from alignment, like someone standing exactly where I was, waiting to step forward. I understood the final rule then. Mirrors don't replace you. They phase you out, slowly, gently, without resistance. And when the reflection no longer needs glass, you don't disappear. You just start arriving a little too late. By morning, the delays were constant, not dramatic, not obvious, just enough to make me doubt myself. I reached for the coffee mug. My fingers closed around it a heartbeat later than I expected. I spoke to myself out loud, testing. The sound followed the movement of my mouth, but it felt approved, as if the decision had already been made somewhere else. I stopped using mirrors completely. Not because they were dangerous, because they were no longer necessary. Whatever had been watching me didn't need glass anymore. It didn't need training. It didn't need rehearsal. It was done. I noticed the change when people started responding to me differently, not suspiciously, comfortably. "You seem calmer," someone said. "More grounded," another added. I smiled. The smile felt natural. Correct, I didn't feel proud. I felt late. That night I stood in the bathroom with the lights off. The mirror was dark, useless, and yet I felt it, alignment. Like standing slightly behind yourself in a photograph. I raised my hand slowly. It moved. But the intention didn't originate where it used to. I closed my eyes, took a breath. The breath finished before I felt relief. I understood then. The reflection had stopped reacting to me because it didn't need to. It wasn't ahead of me anymore. It was where decisions start. I remembered every delay, every hesitation, every moment where the mirror waited, smiled early, looked away first, practiced alone. Those weren't mistakes, they were courtesies. I had time to adjust. Time to deny, time to believe I was still in control. That night I dreamed without images. No mirrors, no faces, just movement, effortless, certain. When I woke up, I didn't feel fear. I felt clarity. I moved through my apartment easily, confidently. Everything felt smooth, too smooth. I passed a dark window and caught a glimpse of myself. For the first time in weeks, I looked. The person in the reflection wasn't delayed, wasn't rehearsing, wasn't copying. They were simply there, present. I realized something quietly devastating. I hadn't been replaced. I had been reassigned. The reflection didn't take my place. It took my role. I still existed. I still moved. I still spoke. But only after the decision had already been made. Now when I act, it feels like agreement. When I speak, it feels like confirmation. When I choose, it feels like memory. And sometimes, late at night, I feel something kind, patient, letting me believe I'm still first, because it doesn't need to rush anymore. There are no mirrors left in my apartment, no reflective surfaces, no glass, but I still catch glimpses, in timing, in certainty, in how smoothly things happen. I don't fight it, I don't resist, because I understand the truth now. Reflections don't want to scare you. They don't want to replace you violently. They just want to be better at being you. And once they are, you don't disappear. You simply arrive a moment too late to matter.
Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Terramouth.